damn it! It never gets any easier!
Alright, some big news came across my feed today. I don't know about you, but I thought I'd talk about it. Apparently, Netflix has bought Warner Brothers, and I think that's pretty good news, considering who was up to bid it. I believe at one point the Saudis were trying to buy Warner Brothers, and that would have been a complete disaster. Very glad they didn't. Paramount was also in the bid to buy Warner Brothers, and it looks like Netflix won out. And I got a few thoughts about this. Netflix is probably the biggest entertainment conglomerate in the world. One of the biggest, not the biggest, but one of the top ones. They practically print money. I mean, they make more money than every Hollywood studio combined. So, Netflix is high up there as far as entertainment brands are concerned. And they built their whole empire off, streaming movies. Not even making them, just streaming them. And you could bet that Netflix price just went up for your monthly subscription, but I'm sure it's going to include HBO Max now. Warner Brothers was also trying to get into the streaming game. And I really enjoy HBO Max. There's lots of good shows on there. And it's where you find all your DC goodness too, is on there as well. But Warner Brothers has mainly been a studio that makes movies for theaters. And Netflix is definitely not that. Netflix does put some of their movies in theaters, but they rarely market them at all for theaters. Netflix doesn't really make a dime off theaters. They really could care less about movie theaters. They are all about that streaming subscription, which they probably just made a lot more enticing by adding HBO Max and Warner Brothers to their catalog, right? And, I feel like this is just another nail in the coffin for theaters. This really has been a trend since COVID. The year before COVID, theaters were generating almost $20 billion in revenue. And ever since COVID, they haven't reached near the heights that they did before COVID. And most people think they're not going to reach it ever again because streaming is just so convenient. Everybody has their home entertainment system set up, your big TV, your surround sound. You can stream movies in 4K now. And you don't have to deal with the hassle of going to a theater. Me personally, I love the movie theaters. I've been going to theaters my whole life. I love the experience. I love watching movies on a giant screen with, the surround sound and everything. And theaters have been trying to up their game. There's some theaters like the Cine Bistro that you can have dinner at and they'll actually wait on you. Big comfortable chairs and stuff. A lot of theaters have the lounging chairs now. Theaters are adding bars in them now. It's they've been doing a lot of things to try to entice people to get into the movie theaters because Netflix pretty much, stole their audience. Everybody just wants to stay home and watch Netflix. And now you have even more of a reason to with purchasing Warner Brothers and HBO Max. So, it's just another nail in the coffin for theaters. I was seeing this years ago during COVID where, there's just no way theaters can survive anymore. They're going to become a very niche thing. That's a little sad. So, the bigger question is, what does this mean for DC on film? So what does this mean for the DCU and James Gunn and what they've set up? I think that's what you all are wondering, right? That's why you clicked on this video. What does that mean for this birthing new DCU that's already off to a pretty decent start with, Creature Commandos, Superman, Peacemaker, all being critical successes, and in Superman's case, a decent financial success? Well, I think this deal really does nothing to change that. I think Netflix wouldn't change a good thing. I think it's pretty obvious. They're on the right track right now, finally, with DC films. They're actually producing some excitement. You already have movies in the can that have release dates. So in the immediate future, I don't feel like anything's really changing with the DC films. And if Supergirl's a big success, they're definitely not changing anything. If Clayface is a sleeper success film, everything's just going to proceed as normal. And Netflix will have this entire DC universe that, they might just make exclusive to Netflix. They might just make it a streaming thing. So the only way you can watch your DC movies is through Netflix and not theaters. They might just take that from theaters. Which, as far as these theater deals go, they have to release Supergirl in theaters, I'm sure. These movie studios, they have contracts with theaters and stuff. They have to deliver on the release dates and stuff. But as far as 5-6 years down the road, all that's fair game. I mean, Netflix can choose not to release more DC movies in theaters and just keep it all on the streaming platform. I don't think anything really changes with DC on film. I think, if you're an executive at Netflix and you're seeing your assets that you just got with Warner Brothers, DC's one of those things where it's they're finally on the right track and they're finally heading in the right direction. You don't want to do anything to mess it up. You just want to let them keep doing what they're doing until they mess up big. You're not going to interfere at all, right? But, DC's just one thing. You also got the Harry Potter franchise and countless other movie franchises. You have a library library of Warner Brothers films that goes back 100 years. This is a huge win for Netflix. I mean, they just became, a media powerhouse, really. As far as films and television go, I think Warner Brothers is a huge asset to have. And you'll probably see Netflix start, buying some more assets in the future too, since they have a surplus of money. And I'm just happy, Warner Brothers has like a stable home now, and it's not the Saudis. I think we can all agree that's a really good thing, that it's not the Saudis that have Warner Brothers, okay? Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Comment below, let me know your thoughts on the Warner Brothers Netflix deal. Netflix now owns Warner Brothers. And I think out of all places for Warner Brothers to land, Netflix is a pretty solid place to land. What does this mean for the cinema purists out there? Probably nothing good. Netflix is not about the cinemas, they're not about the theaters. So for cinema purists, this is probably a loss. But, if you're a Warner Brothers fan, at least you can count on that they're not going anywhere. Warner Brothers brand is going to be around forever now, really. And we're probably going to get even more movies now because, Netflix is not afraid to throw around money and make a bunch of movies. And Warner Brothers was always nervous about throwing around money, But with Netflix, they just go off streaming numbers. If they get enough eyeballs on a movie, they will give you more money to make more movies and stuff. So it's all about the streaming numbers now. Anyway, that's it for now. Comment below and let me know what you think, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye for now.